Matthew chapter 11.
All right.
The week before the conference, we were on vacation. So as great as the conference is not vacation. The conference involves a couple of miles worth of walking every day. We're at like the largest convention center in Orlando, and to get from where you parked your car to where you're meeting for classes, it's going to take you about 15 minutes or so, which isn't the worst thing in the world. Then you take a break for lunch, then you got to repeat the process all over again. But it wasn't vacation. A lot of classes, a lot of walking, a lot of great times. But the week prior to that, we were on vacation. And we spent about 3 days on the beach, not caring what time it was or what day of the week it was. That was really cool. We did a tour in Old Town Charleston, South Carolina, which is kind of styled in the late 1700s, and saw some cool stuff. Took a horse-drawn carriage ride, ate at a lot of cool restaurants, did some neat stuff. Then we kind of wrapped up the vacation in St. Augustine, Florida, which is another old city. I think it's the oldest European settlement here in the States. The Spanish were there by the 1560s, and that's a cool place. The old town there has a lot of cool restaurants, live music. We went to the beach, took a bicycle ride that was a little bit ambitious.
It was much longer than we
probably longer than we probably should have.
But we made it to the beach.
And had some great rest, some great time with each other, and appreciated that opportunity. But that reminded me of something. The need that we all have for rest. You look around and it's empty-ish in here today. Partly some families are still in Orlando at the conference. Other families are on vacation, because that's what you do in July and August. It's occurred to me more and more as I've gotten older that you don't really want to go away for vacation in the summer when you live here. This is where people come for summer vacation.
Where you
want to stay here, actually. You want to go away for vacation if you get the opportunity to do that in the winter time or late part of spring. That's when you go to San Diego, right? That's when you want to go someplace else. But right now, this is actually a really cool place to be. But the way that it worked out is, since we needed to be in Florida for that conference, we're like, all right, I guess we're going away for vacation. And it'll sort of land us in that vicinity, and we can just take a short drive. But while on vacation, you do think about things like rest. And you have moments where you're like, why don't we do this more often? Like, vacation is a good idea. And partly because vacation, you think of, I've got to go do things when I'm on vacation, and therefore it costs money. And when you're going to go away for vacation, getting there is either going to cost you, hotel stays or airline tickets or both. And so we don't always have the funds. And something happens. We get the word rest and the word vacation twisted up with each other. And it's not always good to do that. It's important for us to have rest without it being a vacation. Matter of fact, rest should be a part of our regular routine. And I'm not just talking about going to sleep at night. Like, that's rest and that's good. And I'm not talking about watching television or just laying in a hammock somewhere. I'm talking about the kind of rest that gets down to the soul. This morning's message is titled Rest and Why It Matters. And so I thought about rest while we were on vacation. And this message was composed in my hotel room the last morning that we were, last evening that we were there for the conference. After we got back from our general session, I started working on my tablet. So there's no PowerPoint today, which I'm not sure if that disappoints anybody. There won't be any pictures or things to look at. This is it. This is what you get this morning. Right here. Okay? But we will get into the scriptures, and as I promised, we're going to start in Matthew chapter 11. I thought about rest, and I thought about how good it was to be getting some, or to have gotten some, and I thought I would share some thoughts with us this morning. So in Matthew 11, verse 28, we're going to pick up here from a dialogue Jesus is having, where he says, and you've probably heard this one before, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you." He's not talking about an egg yolk. That's not it's not a Y-O-L-K yoke. This is a yoke spelled like woke. Okay? Yoke like the kind that lays across the back of a beast of burden, like a horse or an oxen. That's what they used to attach a carriage or a plow to this yoke, and then the beasts would pull it. Right? We were riding through the streets of Charleston, and I saw this yoke on this horse. What was his name? Old Glue Stick?
I'm not sure. It wasn't glue stick.
He was an old horse, you guys. And a couple of times he just stopped walking.
He did.
It wasn't unscheduled. I'm done for now.
Yeah.
And we would just sit there, and then the tour guide would just tell you some stories and wait for the horse to catch his breath. But anyway, he's got this yoke on him, and Jesus says, take my yoke, this instrument that's used in the process of working, take my yoke upon you and learn from me. See, Jesus works, but there's a way that Jesus works that he wants to share with us. So, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Now, that sounds kind of wild from a guy who got crucified, right? And persecuted unto his death. Doesn't sound very easy, doesn't sound very light, so what is he getting at? Well, Jesus promises rest for the weary. Ever been tired?
Oh, yeah.
Are you feeling tired maybe right now? Some folks aren't at worship this morning because they're tired, or because on some level they're feeling weary. One of the things that's come upon us here in the pandemic and post-pandemic age is, hey, I can watch church online. And that has its purpose, it has its place.
Right.
But if that becomes the consistent habit, and there's not really a need for it other than convenience, that's time for a little heart check, right? But look, some of us don't make it out because we're weary, and that's a paradox. You guys know the word paradox? It's when the opposite of what you thought would be true ends up being true. And so, worship is an opportunity actually for us to get a little bit of rest. But sometimes worship feels like work. That's a key indicator that we might be taking the wrong posture, the wrong mindset, the wrong attitude toward what it is that we're trying to do here. Right? We're not trying to add to the pile of work. This is intended to be a time for our souls to get a recharge and to find rest. So anyway, Jesus drops 3 significant components to resting in these few verses that we read here. The first one is to take on his yoke. That's a key part of this rest. To take on Jesus' way, his will, his style, his approach, his yoke. That's part of getting the rest. A lot of times we come to Jesus in name only, and we know it's supposed to create some sort of regenerative thing for our soul, but we just keep on living our life and thinking the same way from the same perspective that we've always thought of it. And then it just feels like Jesus becomes like an extracurricular activity or something we add to our will or our way. And then we scratch our head and we go, I don't find that very restful. Is Jesus a liar?
Come on.
But he's not a liar. That's part of what he drops on us here. He says, look, you got to take my yoke upon you. I don't know how much time we've ever even thought about what that means. And this is not going to be enough time this morning for me to tell you. I just encourage you to do some digging.
Amen.
Because if it doesn't feel very restful, it's not because Jesus is a liar. It's probably because you kind of have
You're doing it wrong.
a slanted approach toward what you think it means. Another thing he drops on us is the need for a humble heart. Now this is a huge part of rest. Because when you get soul level rest, that requires humility. It requires, and we'll get into this a little bit later, an understanding of, hey, look, if I don't work, my kids aren't going to die. If I just slow down for a day, if I take rest. It may get a little weird, things may get a little messy, but I need this rest. My kids aren't going to die, right? My job is not going to go away. That pile of papers on my desk to correct, it's not going to get any smaller, but you know what? It won't get any bigger. Like, I need to be able to step away, I need to be able to rest, and it's okay. Pride makes us think we can't rest. The world would fall apart if I didn't stay engaged. And that's a lie.
Right.
That's a prideful lie, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But anyway, that's another thing Jesus drops. And then the third thing Jesus drops here in this couple of verses is this idea of rest for your soul. See, there's physical rest. We're all familiar with physical rest. When you're younger, you don't need as much physical rest, although you do need it. Never seen people get so tired as a teenager. When a teenager's tired, they want to sleep for like 12 hours.
Right.
As an adult, if you sleep for 12 hours, people are like, is there something wrong with him? Is he okay? Is he sick? Is he struggling? Are they okay? Right? And some adults need to get 12 hours of rest. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what your body needs. But look, it's hard to find the time. And we won't allow ourselves to find that kind of time to sleep. I remember thinking as a younger guy that 8 or 9 hours of sleep is for like lazy people. Like, why are you sleeping so much? Don't you know there's work to be done?
Right.
And I sort of prided myself on, I get 6 hours of sleep a night, 6.5. That's because I'm tough. Right? That's because I'm spiritual. It's because I'm engaged in the work of the kingdom. And all you 8 and 9 hour people, hopefully you'll figure it out eventually. There's work that needs to get done, and maybe you'll want to help us out with some of it. I'm just embarrassed to say that, but that is kind of what my mindset was when I was a young man and a young disciple. Now, I was working 30 hours a week, taking a full load at school, and had 2 small children.
Yes. Yes.
Right? So I don't know if I, was too far off in the fact that work needed to get done.
Yeah.
But this unhealthy attitude toward rest developed in me, and I think I share it just to say I think I'm pretty normal. I think this is kind of what pervades a lot of our society and the view that we take toward rest. Like, rest is for the weak. And Jesus isn't talking about that physical rest, though. He's talking about rest for the soul. This is another one of those things I want to encourage you to dig into. Like, what does that even mean? How do you rest a soul? I can't even identify it fully. How am I supposed to rest it when I don't even know where it starts and where it ends? Or what it needs? Boy, some Bible study will tell you the things that the soul thrives upon are different than what the body thrives upon. But from an early age, my friends, so these are the 3 things Jesus drops. Take on his yoke, have a humble heart, and rest the soul. From an early age, we kind of start to shun the idea of rest, whether it's for the soul or for the body. Toddlers, eventually, don't want a nap anymore.
Yeah.
Right? There's too much fun to have. Too many things to get into. Kids don't want bedtime. Bedtime's a big thing every night. It's like, okay, it's supposed to be at 8:30 every night, guys. What's the big surprise? But it's like, I gotta get water. Can you read to me? I just don't want to go to bed. Because there's too many games to play, too many shows to watch.
Right.
Young adults don't want to rest. Young adults have to get ahead. They see what a lot of the established adults have. They don't have it yet. And so they feel like if they rest, they're never going to catch up. Mature adults don't feel like they can rest, as I described a little bit ago, because they think, I have no time. Older adults finally begin to embrace the idea of rest because they're tired. You wonder why Mark falls asleep all the time. That brother's been working his whole life, right? Mark's a notorious nap taker and a fantastic snorer. He can really get it going, right? But he's worked hard to get that way. He didn't just show up one day sleeping and snoring. He's worked hard his whole life, and older adults finally begin to embrace the idea because they're tired. But something else happens. After decades and decades and decades of working really hard, we have no earthly idea how to rest.
Right.
Even if you gave us the time to do it, we don't know how to do it. So we try all sorts of things. Well, maybe it means going on vacation. Maybe it means gardening. Maybe it means watching more television. Maybe it means reading books. But all those things are actually work in a different form.
Yeah.
That's not soul rest. Vacations are cool. Turn to Exodus 20.
Okay.
But that's not soul level rest. A really interesting part of the Old Covenant is this idea of Sabbath. It was commanded not suggested. The Lord didn't say, oh, my sweet children, I know you work hard, and I know you're up to a lot of things, and I care so much. I just want you to consider this idea of taking a day and setting it aside just for rest. It would be so cool. That's not the way it gets phrased at all. Right? It's like, do this or else. Check this out. In Exodus chapter 20, we're going to start reading here in verse 8.
Okay.
Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God, and on it you shall not do any work, neither you nor your son or daughter. Don't pawn it off on somebody else. Nor your manservant or maidservant. Don't even hire it out. Nor your animals. Nor the alien within your gates. This is not talking about outer space aliens. It's talking about foreigners.
Oh, thanks.
Okay. In case some of you are like, ooh, evidence in the Bible for space travel. That wasn't it. Verse 11, in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth and the sea and all that's in them, but he rested on the seventh day. Therefore, the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Honor your father and mother, so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. These are parts of the Ten Commandments. We're picking up here in Exodus 20. These are the Ten Commandments, and we took a snapshot of 2 of them. I thought I'd throw the honor your father and mother in there because that's always a hit with the parents. Yeah. But look, it's commanded that they rest. These are people, I want you to think of something here real quick, okay? These are people that are so not like us. Their lives and our lives barely resemble each other in some ways. These are people who live without grocery stores, without fast food, without televisions, without automobiles, without electricity piped into your home, without running water. They look like we do, but their lives and the structure of their lives are different. Like when it got dark outside, the day ended.
Done.
Okay, it was pretty much done. You had to light something that you either, took the time to make a torch or make a candle, or you knew a guy who made torches and candles and you went and traded a pony for a torch or something. I don't know how it worked, but look, it took a lot. If you were going to stay up after dark, you better have something important going on, because otherwise it was just time to rest, man. It was over. The day was done. These are people who lived off of the land that they worked with their own hands, who didn't get a paycheck from somebody. They didn't have a timesheet that they filled out. They didn't have a savings account that they drew from. These are people who had to work. If they were going to eat something, they had to put some work in. If they were going to have any light when it got dark outside, they had to put some work in to create something like a fire. These people, if they wanted water, were going to have to go walk somewhere and get it. You guys understand that concept from our water project that we do every year? These people had to work for everything. If you were going to wear some clothes, you may have had to make them and sew them yourself. Everything was work. And so when you tell us to take a day off, it's very different than telling them to take a day off. Right. How are we going to survive if we take a day off? Literally, for these people, it was a survival question. Where am I going to get water?
Right.
How am I going to eat? They couldn't just walk over to the fridge like we can. I got stuff left over. This was a big ask. This is why it was commanded.
Right.
Right? It had to be commanded. Otherwise, people were going to look at it and go, I don't think so. Rest? Stop? What does Sabbath mean? Do you know this? The Hebrew word Shabbat just simply means stop.
Yeah.
But it's more like a commanded exclamation point at the end. It's like, stop! When you come to a red octagon sign, right? It's got the big word stop on there. What does that mean? Is that a suggestion?
No.
I've been pulled over for making it a suggestion before. It's not a suggestion, right? This is a word that means something. It's like you knock it off right there.
Yeah.
Don't go further. Stop it. That's Sabbath. Let's get into some Proverbs real quick. These Proverbs are going to couple together to paint a really cool and important picture. In the Proverbs, in verse 20, these Proverbs are going to contrast with each other a little bit. Proverbs 20, verse 4. Anybody want to volunteer to read this one? Break up the sound of my voice. Okay, Mike.
Sluggards do not plow in season, so at harvest time they look but find nothing.
We get it, right? You know what a sluggard is?
Yeah.
Like they didn't work when they were supposed to work, so now it's harvest time, and what do they find?
Nothing.
No. We look at that and go, hey, you know, get what you pay for, or, you know, reap what you sow. All right, Proverbs 23, verse 4. So that seems to be a proverb that says, hey, you should work. Right? Aaron Heedman, 23:4.
Do not wear yourself out to get rich. Do not trust your own cleverness. Cast but a glance at riches, and they are gone, for they will surely spread their wings and fly off to the sky like an eagle.
Yeah. Okay, work, but don't get carried away.
Right.
Right? Work. Don't be a sluggard. But also, don't get carried away, because your riches, they fly away somehow. It's easy to spend money. Go on vacation for a week, man. You're like spending money all the time. It's like, oh my gosh. I'm having a good time, but man, we're spending some cash out here. Money flies away.
Right.
Work hard, but don't get crazy with it. Proverbs 10, verses 4 and 5. Can I get a reader for that one? Jake Beavers is going to read Proverbs 10, verses 4 and 5.
Lazy hands make for poverty, but diligent hands bring wealth. He who gathers crops from the summer is a prudent son, but he who sleeps during harvest is a disgraceful son.
Laziness equals poverty, my friends. Diligence, it pays off. It's a good thing. Let's read Proverbs chapter 10, verse 22. I want to be diligent. I don't want to be lazy. 10:22, Pam.
The blessing of the Lord brings wealth, without painful toil for it.
See? God is the one who really brings wealth. It's not our painful toil that's going to accumulate wealth for us.
Right.
I mean, our work has something to do with it, but if God doesn't bless you with wealth, all of your work, all of your labor won't get you there. You're going to need God. Hard work is appropriate, but it is not ultimate. Wealth is from the Lord. Wealth is a good thing because it gives us the ability to share. It gives us the ability to be a giver. Right? These contrasting proverbs are meant to teach us something today. They're given to us as a blessing. The proverbs are a blessing from God to show how we can be beneficiaries of hard work without being crushed by hard work. Okay? So, recap. Don't be afraid of hard work, but don't get carried away with it. Okay? Sometimes the heart behind hard work, if we're being honest, I know I'm speaking from personal experience, is simple pride. Sometimes the heart behind hard work is pride. I refuse to look bad. I will not be caught looking like a slacker. So I'm going to work hard. I'm going to get sweaty because that makes me look good. It makes me look applaudable, noteworthy. You know, it's a compliment. We say, man, that guy's a hard worker. Man, she is such a hard worker. Is that an insult? No, it's always a compliment. But is it always a compliment? Should it be? Sometimes it's pure pride. I don't want to look inept. I don't want to look unskilled. So I'm going to work at this until I get better. Because work can lead to money, and money can then be used to lead to status, right? And therefore we often labor as if we're being chased by poverty, as if poverty is a lion who's just chasing after us. And I've got to work because I don't want to get caught by poverty. It's going to tear me apart. And I don't want to look poor. So I'm going to work. Our pride will have none of it.
Right.
Often, the heart behind working too hard is a fear of not having enough from God. God's not going to bless me. I got to take care of myself. Matter of fact, doesn't the Bible say God takes care of those who take care of themselves? Isn't that in there somewhere? Nope, it's not. Now, we are to work hard. We are to sow generously at the proper time. But if we put our security in our own hard work, we are missing the point. We are eliminating the need for God. Or at least we think we are. Because you can never truly eliminate the need for God, can you?
No.
You know? So we end up thinking that we have to provide these things so that we can prove our value through our work. You know, as a kid, on the playground at Victory Elementary School, it's a cool name for a school, playing pickup football, playing kickball, we used to just make up statistics. Oh, that's my 43rd touchdown this year during lunch recess. Just make up numbers. Why would we do this with each other? I had a friend named Chad. He said he kicked 700 home runs one year. Come on, dude. We haven't even had 700 recesses. Right? It's like, you'd have to kick like, I'm not great at math yet, but you'd have to kick like 3 every day to get to 700. You wouldn't reach that till the end of the year. It's only like, October, you've already hit it. He was pretty good though. Why do we do that? Because through accomplishment, through achievement, through hard work, we feel like we have gained some status, some importance. We have some value. Young adults, I remember practicing baseball and football so constantly. If I couldn't find anybody to play with me, I would just get a brick wall and get a bouncy ball and just throw to myself. And I was doing it all the time because I understood something. You get good at this, you're going to get popular. You become an all-conference athlete, you get to wear like a lot of medals on your sweater or your jacket. They don't really probably do the sweaters anymore. Right? Your name gets on the announcements a lot. You get a prettier date. Recognition's good. So I worked hard. Then I got a little bit older and I was like, working jobs and they'll pay you money. So I worked like 2 jobs usually. That gave me a chance to afford better clothing if I got the right name on my pants or my shoes, right? That also is good for the popularity. And all these things aren't about working for the sake of, altruistic hard work to make the world a better place. This is all about myself. It's all feeding into my pride. And even after becoming a Christian, I tried to gain the favor of God and His people through what I could produce through my work because I believed that fruitful meant faithful. And that the opposite was also true, that if you weren't fruitful, you probably weren't a very faithful person. That production made you wise. And there are things about the way that we do things, even in our wonderful, wonderful family of churches, that kind of, they'll feed into this. There are years where I've been asked to speak at conferences, like international conferences, right? And they always seem to coincide with years where whatever church I was leading was doing really well. And we were having a lot of growth and we were having a lot of baptisms. I've noticed that in years where the church I'm working with hasn't had that kind of growth, I don't get asked to speak at anything.
Yeah, right. What are you doing
I'm
over
not
there?
dumber than I was before, I don't think. I might even be wiser. But I would get asked to speak because the productivity isn't there. Look, there are just things that happen like that, right? I'm not trying to vilify anybody. It's just the way the world that we're in is set up, and it leaks into us, even in the kingdom. There's a heart behind hard work that can be a pretty unhealthy heart, pretty prideful heart. I know it is for me. The heart behind not working hard seems to be lazy, right? And entitled. One that's comfortable with taking without giving proportionately. One that says, hey, I don't have to do much. Someone else will do it, and I'll just reap the benefits. We want a great marriage. We want wealth. We want security. We want a growing church. We want a meaningful. We want all the good stuff. All right. We get those things when we do put in an appropriate and fair amount of labor and sacrifice. But we don't get those things if we don't put forth the work. So that leaves us in a little bit of a conundrum.
Right.
Right? I have to work hard. That's part of the way. Why do I have to work hard? How did Jesus phrase it? Come to me, all you who are weary, I'll give you rest, right? Take upon my yoke. I am what? I am humble of
Yes.
heart. See, hard work done with humility is so much different than hard work done out of pride.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, we find ourselves frustrated when we expect a great marriage without putting in hard work on the marriage.
Right.
Or when we don't have a great church, or a growing church. Often those things get equated with one another. And I'm not sure they should be. Although I believe that great churches grow. It's really hard for a great church to not grow.
Right.
Word gets out. Right? Great churches tend to grow. But look, not to make it all about that, but you know, we want a growing church. But are we willing to go out and share our faith? Like, we've got Go teams set up. We've got tools in people's hands. We've been training and giving people opportunities to come out and go sharing with the evangelist of the church. He'll show you how to do it. Are you taking advantage of those when you get the opportunity to take advantage of those? Right? These are things that if we want to have great, we've got to do the work. But once we've worked, now here's the trick, here's the paradox, or here's the conundrum that we're in. Why do I work hard? What's the heart I work hard with? And how do I balance that? Because you know what happens to people who work hard all of the time and it gets out of balance?
Yeah.
They burn out. And even the things that used to be rewarding and used to be exciting and used to seem like opportunities that they get to do now seem like, you know, the first couple of days after you get like a new job, the first couple of days are kind of fun. It's like, ooh. You kind of get to know people, and you get to see some new equipment, or you know,
Right.
This is my new office, whatever setting you find, it's fun. But after a little while, it's like, yeah, that's work. Right? The newness wears off. And that can happen to us spiritually. Things that used to be like, oh, I love singing the songs. The songs are great. Oh, that one again? Yeah, I'm tired of that. That song feels like work. What happens to us?
Come on.
Right? We get out of balance. That's what happens to us. So this message is about trying to restore that balance. So how does God tend to want us to restore the balance? Because it's apparently not that he doesn't want us to work hard. He wants us to work hard with a humble heart. But how do we do that and then not get burned out? Sabbath. That's how you do that without getting burned out. Rest is how you do that. Why does rest matter? It can make all the difference in our spiritual lives. Okay? All that being said, there's a real self-reliant attitude that can drive us in the pursuit of work, which appears noble on the surface. For example, child raising can become less of a labor of love and more of an obsession to create a person who's going to bring honor to our family name.
Come on.
Anxious parents who continually push to add more, to be at more, to get their kids engaged in more, involved in more. What that does is it passes along a culture of anxiety to our children. Hey, get your kids involved in stuff, but teach them how to rest. How can your kids learn how to balance Christian rest and Sabbath if their parents don't show it? If they don't exhibit it? When they do learn about it in the Bible one day, they're going to go, gee, my parents had that all messed up. Another thing we can turn to is our jobs, right? As an example. Work is honorable, even encouraged in the scriptures, right? However, work can become a way for us to obsess, gain accolades, get promoted, earn more. Right? If I earn more, it must be a sure sign of our worth, right? Maybe in the eyes of this realm it is, but
Right.
does how much you make change how saved you are? The quality of neighborhood you can afford to live in?
Right.
Change how much you're worth to Jesus? These examples and more can demonstrate how we can pretty quickly tilt our attitude toward work and accomplishment in an ungodly direction. Our culture ties so much of our identity to our work. It really does. And that's changing. I don't know if you noticed that or not.
Yeah.
But have you noticed there's a lot of places hiring?
Yeah. Everywhere.
Why is that? People are choosing to underemploy themselves. They're saying, no, I don't want to work that weird shift that they've got. What is the Texas swing shift? This is a thing. I don't know if you've ever heard of it or not, but the Texas swing shift is this weird work schedule that you end up on. You do some second and some third and some first, and there's places that want your time and they'll pay you generously for it. You see billboards. What? I never saw this when I was growing up. Billboards saying help wanted will pay you $22 an hour, $25 an hour. It's like the billboards have turned into the classifieds. How bad do they have to be short on labor before they decide to get a billboard? And you see people getting paid now like oddly high amounts of money to do fairly menial jobs. Some things are a little askew right now, so it's weird, right? What's happening? Have you ever found yourself in a conversation? Maybe you're the initiator of the conversation where you just kind of chided this generation. These kids don't want to work anymore. Back in my day, we worked. Yeah, where'd it get you? Where'd it get you? Kids are starting to figure stuff out about work and the way they've seen their parents go about it. And said, you know what, if I've got to be that unavailable to make that money, I'd rather not do it. I'll figure out a way to work with, live off of less. And so you've got kids now who are young adults now, actually not kids, who are willing to say no to those jobs because they don't want the stress and the long hours that go along with it. And those of us who are older, we're pulling the rope on it. We're like, that's wrong. Is it? Even our relaxed version when it comes to labor and rest is still notably more work than most cultures in the world produce. If you go to Europe, they don't work nearly as much as we do. And there's a whole other setting still in Asia or Africa. We're products of the Western mindset, or specifically American mindset, that your identity comes from how hard you work and how often you work. I'll give you some evidence to this. You might think this applies to somebody else, couldn't possibly apply to you. It applies to you. Ever felt like less when you hear about how much someone else makes?
Yeah.
Ever feel like less when you learn that someone makes more than you? Then it's rubbing off on you. Ever looked at someone else as less because you have more than them? Your car's nicer. Your house is nicer. Your clothes are nicer. Ever have that happen? Yeah, it's rubbing off on you. Ever felt like your ticket to a better life is harder work or longer hours? Just for a while.
Yeah.
It's rubbing off on you. Because it's true just often enough that it gets us in trouble.
Right.
Quite often, it's not the way it goes at all. We never get out of that season of, I just got to work a little extra. We find ourselves, as soon as we make a little more, what do we do with it? Spend a little more. Yeah, that's how it works. Right? You get a little better cut of meat. You get better clothes. You get a little more of this, a little more of that. And then the next thing you know, I still don't have enough money. I'm working more hours and I still don't have anything left over.
Yeah.
You with me?
Yeah.
More money,
No problem.
no problems. This hard work culture is under review, especially by that younger generation, who seem to be longing more for meaningful work than for steady work. More for useful contributions in their and what it brings. By understanding the concept of rest. Rest is an interesting command from God there in Exodus 20, isn't it? I mean, why would God care? Why should God care if we rest? What's in it for him? Right? Our rest isn't in God's best interest. If he's a taskmaster, you would think he would want us to work more. But he commands rest. Well, it's because God doesn't have only his interest in mind. It's one of the cool things about God. He genuinely thinks about us. He isn't a taskmaster. He wants us to rest for 3 reasons. Jot these down. Number 1, he knows something you don't know. Okay? God wants us to rest for 3 reasons. First one is he knows something you don't know. There's wisdom in rest. There's wisdom in leaving it be and walking away for a day. Second reason, true rest is a spiritual experience. It's good for the soul.
Right.
True rest is a spiritual experience, good for the soul. It keeps us grounded. It keeps us humble. It keeps us grateful. Third reason, he knows that we're better people and better workers after we rest. We're better after we rest. I can grind my way to being a solid B-level worker, husband, father, preacher. Matter of fact, I think that's kind of the story of my life. I ground my way to being pretty solid at a lot of things. But it wasn't until I got humbled by rest that I've been able to take things to an A level, to a level that God intends for me.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't until I started to really consider rest that I was able to discover the end of myself in a good, godly, healthy way. To admit I've got limits. And it's okay. Over the past few years, I've made my Saturdays into a space where I'm not fixing anything. I'm not doing yard work. I'm not trying to advance ministry. I'm not trying to get stronger at anything. This summer I flipped my Fridays and Saturdays, so now Fridays for the summertime are my day. So Saturdays I'll get a little yard work done and do the Go team, and we'll have some appointments on Saturdays. And Fridays though, I'm done. And it's been hard to get used to, but I've learned to trust that I've done enough. I have enough. I am enough. And most of all, I've learned, this is more important than that I can trust God because Jesus has done enough. And Jesus is enough.
Right.
And he'll supply enough for me. So during this past few years when I've been doing this, I noticed something else. I'm happier.
Right.
I'm more lighthearted. I'm more clear-minded. I'm more effective. I'm more efficient. I haven't missed anything worth having by taking time to rest. I take regular breaks, not for vacation, I get those too, but just for soul rest. It's a biblical concept. It was a command under the Mosaic Law. There is much to learn and to gain from this practice. And it has a counterintuitive effect. This is how God wants to counteract hard work. He wants us to work hard, but he wants us to counteract it through rest. See, the thing happens, you find more time when you decide to make a commitment to rest. You actually find more time. Not because more time grows on the clock, but because your mind changes. Your perspective shifts. Because you realize that your presence isn't needed all the time.
Right.
You're not needed in all things. You're not that important.
Right.
Rest forces you to recognize, oh, they can play without me. They can even win without me. They might even be better sometimes without me. My kids can do more for themselves, which is eventually what they're going to have to learn how to do anyway. I can rest. I'm not that important. And once you've got that realization, time starts opening up in other ways outside of your Sabbath. You're like, hey, look, I'm not trying to be lazy here. I've come to recognize I don't have to strain at the oars that hard. The team will pick it up at work. I don't have to stay as late. You find more time because you realize your presence is needed in all things. God will provide. You gain more perspective, you gain more wisdom, you make yourself more efficient when you are available. Oftentimes, we don't make ourselves available because we think we're out of time, we're out of energy. But imagine for a second what it would look like not to see yourself as so important. Imagine what that might be like. Imagine how liberating that could be. Let me leave you with this challenge today. Have the courage to stop trying to control everything through your own work. And I did say courage, because I think it is fear that keeps us working so much, so hard sometimes. And here's how I want you to do it. I want you to prove it. I want you to prove that you trust God. I want you to prove that you're not trying to control everything anymore by taking a period of each day to rest from labor and hustle and to spend simply on rest. I'm not talking about watching TV. I'm not talking about reading something or studying something. I'm not talking about going out in the yard and working or going in the garage and tinkering. I'm talking about actual rest, where you just sit down and you don't do anything. You don't take calls, you don't get on Facebook, you don't check out someone's Instagram feed, you don't snap, you don't nothing. You just take a period, like even if it's 10 minutes. When you first start, you will be so antsy, you won't know what to do. And that's the point. It's to do nothing. Your soul is not resting until you're able to unplug it all. And then, I'd like you to prove it further still by setting aside a day each week, or even a half of a day, or a quarter of a day each week, where you truly rest from work on all levels. Tell the kids, kitchen's closed. A portion of that day each week where you can rest on all levels without fear of what you're going to lose, but with faith of what you will gain from